The ISS has been manned continuously for 25 years now. The parts themselves are even older than that. In 1984, President Ronald Reagan, along with Congress, approved the budget needed to get work on the space station started. With this, then NASA Administrator James Beggs set out to find international partners who would join the program. Canada, Japan, and Europe would be the ones to answer this call initially, with Russia joining a handful of years later. Starting in the late 80s, various elements of the station were constructed by these countries, which all led up to 1998 when the launching of the station's parts began. The first module in space is called the Zarya module, and the space station's first official mission, STS-88, would bring up the first module to attach to Zarya. This was the Unity module, and it served as a hub of sorts for the station with 6 total docking ports. This process would continue for 2 years, with different modules being added. On November 2nd, 2000, the Expedition 1 crew arrived. This marked the start of the time that the ISS has been continuously manned. Modules would continue to be added until 2011, kind of marking the completion of the station as we see it today. During this time, all the way through that, the station has remained active and manned, and we have accomplished things on it that would simply not be possible without the conditions that we can achieve there. The lingering question, though, that a lot of people have been asking is, have we reached the point where we should start thinking about decommissioning the ISS? And should that come maybe sooner than the original planned 2030 date? Now, the space station is moving very, very fast, around 28,000 kilometers per hour, which is 17,000 miles per hour. In a span of 90 minutes or so, it will complete one orbit around the Earth. It can be found in low Earth orbit at around 400 kilometers or 250 miles up. The station requires assistance to stay in this orbit, as if it was left on its own, it would slowly descend until it burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. To combat this, the station must be regularly boosted to keep it in space and in the orbit that it's intended to be in. Here we can see a diagram which has all of the parts and sections labeled. We can also see that this diagram is color-coded, and up here in the top left, we see that the colors denote which country provided which parts of the station. For today, I want to mostly focus on these 2 main sections, the Russian orbital segment and the United States orbital segment. These 2 areas are where the astronauts or crew live and work, and much of what is done here are science experiments that can only be done in space. The United States orbital segment consists of 11 modules. The contributing countries for this segment are the US, Europe, Japan, and Canada. This module here, known first as Node 2, but now as Harmony, can be called a utility hub of sorts. It serves as the connection point for the US, Europe, and Japan laboratory modules. It holds the crew quarters, having 4 in total, and each of them is roughly the size of a telephone booth, if any of us know what that is anymore, or how big they are. Even I'm not that old. And it provides the crew members with some personal space and accommodation. There's a sleeping bag strapped to the wall to keep them in place, 2 laptops, one for mostly work, and another with internet access for personal use. They also have an iPad that can be used for things like watching movies or following news, along with some other small personal items. The other crew quarter in the USOS side is found in the European Columbus module. This module is the largest contribution to the ISS from ESA and is also a science laboratory. It can accommodate 10 active science payloads at a time, And right now, ESA is using 5 of those racks, while NASA is making use of the other 5. Here is the third module we will go over from the USOS side, and it is called Destiny. This module is the primary operating facility for NASA science on the ISS. Experiments are conducted within Destiny all year round, covering areas like physics, chemistry, medical research, and materials science. Much of what we are learning within this, and all the research-based modules on the ISS, is how to better prepare humans for future space missions to places such as the Moon, or going even further out to Mars. Destiny and Columbus are not the only science labs in this section of the station either. We also have Japan's Kibo module, which is shown here, and this is the largest of them all, making it one of the most capable places for crew to perform science. And we will actually come back to some of the science done on the ISS later in this video. Before moving forward, let's have a look at the Russian orbital segment as well, and one of its modules will end up being important later. Now, this working and living segment of the ISS has 6 modules, one of which being the first ever module Zarya, which we mentioned earlier. Now, Zarya's original role outside being a cargo hold included providing the early station configuration with things like electrical power, propulsion, and navigation guidance. This role was transferred over to the Zvezda module when it arrived. Zvezda now is pretty much the core of the ROS. It also provides life support systems to the station, though now some of these are supplemented in the USOS side. This module also has sleeping quarters for 2 crew members. The third module I would like to touch on here is NACA, the ROS Science module. NACA was a late addition, not arriving on the ISS until 2021, and with a bit of a situation too. About an hour after docking, its onboard computers experienced a glitch that fired the module's thrusters. This flipped the station over 1.5 times before the thruster ran out of fuel and stopped. Now, thankfully, this did not endanger anyone's lives, and the ground crew were able to reorient the station properly. Besides serving as a science hub, NACA also has crew quarters for 1, and some other cool emergency features as well. It has an oxygen support system that can support up to 6 crew, a galley, which is like a kitchen, a toilet, and a urine recycling system. So in a pinch, it could support most or all of the crew up there in the station. With that overview though, now let's look at some science that is exclusive to the ISS, or really to space stations in general. Over the past 2 decades, the ISS has helped us perform science in ways that we really just cannot replicate here on Earth. And this is because of it always being in microgravity. So due to this, we can conduct long-duration microgravity research, and this has led to many beneficial discoveries. And so you know what, while we're here, let's go over some of the fields that are being studied. And we're just going to start with fundamental disease research, so kind of broad, but microgravity research has provided scientists with new insights into conditions such as heart disease, asthma, which I have, cancer, Parkinson's disease, and Alzheimer's disease. I'm sure there are other examples as well. By examining cells, protein clusters, and organoids without the influence of the container walls or gravity, researchers can gain a clearer understanding of their behaviors, properties, and responses to various treatments. And these findings can then subsequently be applied to improve health outcomes for us here on Earth. Next up, we have methods to combat muscle atrophy and bone loss. And this one is really important for what I mentioned earlier, long-duration space travel. And so research in space has significantly advanced our understanding of bone and muscle deterioration in astronauts, as well as methods to alleviate these issues. The insights obtained are also applicable to individuals on Earth who suffer from conditions such as osteoporosis. And next up, we got food, specifically growing food in microgravity. So growing food in space helps humans explore further from Earth, right? Like, you gotta eat. You gotta get your food source from somewhere. And so techniques for growing plants have been tested on the space station. On August 10th, 2015, astronauts ate their very first space-grown salad, and now they are even growing radishes. And we have evolution in fluid physics research, right? While fluids are abundant on Earth, studying their behavior in space can significantly enhance our understanding of fluid dynamics. The research into space-based fluid studies has evolved from fundamental inquiries to practical applications, encompassing advanced medical technologies and heat transfer systems. So earlier we looked at the Russian Zvezda service module, which is one of the oldest parts on the station. And this is likely where the main source of the issue lies, right? So since September of 2019, Zvezda has been experiencing a very small but worsening air leak. The source of this leak is not fully understood, but it appears to be coming from microscopic structural cracks within a piece of the module, a small transfer tunnel known as PRK. So the job of this module is to connect Zvezda to its aft docking port, and then other things can come in and connect to that to, get between point A to point B, like a spacecraft to Zvezda. And initially, the leak was minimal, at around 1 pound per day. But this has since increased to around 3.7 pounds per day. And while cosmonauts have experimented with repairing the small cracks, generally has not led to a complete solution of the problem. Even with the leak appearing to have stopped in PRK, the overall pressure of the station continued to drop. So again, while no one is 100% certain what the cause is, it is likely that the seals in the hatch leading to the PRK module are still in some way leaking. So let's say pressure from the station was feeding the module, it could explain why its pressure now appears static, but we can still see the station's pressure coming down. Either way, more troubleshooting is required, and while Roscosmos says the leaks do not put Zvezda at any risk of catastrophic failure, NASA is taking extra precautions to protect the USOS side if something were to go wrong. And so right now, I believe the current plan from NASA is to deorbit the ISS by 2030. And if it makes it that long, if it makes it that far, that would be fantastic. But when researching this video, I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's going to end up being a little earlier, right? Like if 2028 or 2029 would be safer. This, though, would hopefully not spell the end of NASA astronauts' presence in space, as there are many private space station projects currently underway in the United States. And so I would be remiss not to go over some of these upcoming stations and kind of take a fun look into hopefully what our future is going to look like for space exploration, at least in low Earth orbit. Starting with VAST and the Haven 1 space station. Now, the Haven 1 is a planned station that will find itself in low Earth orbit, and at the time of this recording, it has a planned launch date of no earlier than May of 2026. VAST, who is making the station, has partnered with Impulse Space for the propulsion system. The station will only have a single module, and it won't have the ability to sustain crew for long periods of time. Instead, crew would be flown up on board a Crew Dragon spacecraft that would both dock to the station and supplement it with life support systems for the duration of the crew stay, before of course taking them back at the end. While on board, the station crew will be able to perform science experiments that call for low gravity, such as mimicking what is found on the moon. The first mission to this station will be called VAST-1. Next up, we have Starlab. And Starlab is part of NASA's CLD program, which stands for Commercial LEO Destinations. And this program has the goal of supporting space stations built by private companies. This is where Starlab comes in. It is a joint venture between Voyager Technologies, Lockheed Martin, at first anyway. Their role has actually now been taken over by Airbus, so it's Voyager Technologies and Airbus working on this. Starlab will consist of 2 modules, a service module, which provides power, propulsion, and along with essential utilities and resources, and then a habitation module, which will provide life support systems and serve as the main spot where crew can live and perform science. The station will be launched into space on Starship from SpaceX, as that is the only launch vehicle that will be capable of launching a payload that's the size of Starlab. Now, at the time of this recording, they are aiming for no earlier than 2028 for that launch date. One thing I find cool about Starlab is that it will be capable of conducting more than 400 experiments per year, which would allow the station and its 4 crew members to support 100% of what the ISS can currently do today. And of course, we wouldn't be talking about space stations without Blue Origin and Orbital Reef. Now, Orbital Reef is also part of NASA's CLD program, and it is a partnership primarily between Blue Origin and Sierra Space, but it includes other partners as well. And it would be a little different than the other two. It would serve as both a tourist attraction for like space tourism. Send me up there, please, I would love that. And also a place for scientific study, right? So Orbital Reef would be able to handle both of those things. Mock-ups of it show capability to dock with multiple different spacecraft, such as SpaceX Dragon 2, Dream Chaser, Soyuz, and the Boeing Starliner, though we will have to wait and see how many of these actually make it into the final design. Orbital Reef will have 4 initial modules: Life, Core, and 2 research modules. Life is an inflatable space habitat being designed and developed by Sierra Space. This would be quite a station, and like I said earlier, it would be a huge lie for me to say that I would not want to visit it sometime in the future if it reaches completion, and if that's possible for me within my lifetime. And of course, the possibly closest of them all is the Axiom Space Station. And this is because the initial modules of the Axiom Station are actually planned to dock and remain with the ISS until they can get the modules needed to support their station on its own. They will make use of the Canadarm2 to help build and assemble its own modules, but by that time it detaches and goes on its own, it will have an arm of its own as well, to kind of do the same things that the Canadarm2 can do for the ISS. And so let's go a little deeper here and have a look at least the first 2 modules that Axiom is planning. And the first one is PPTM, which is called Payload Power Thermal Module, and its name pretty much suggests what its purpose for the station will be. Currently, this module is planned to launch no earlier than 2027, and it will start out docked on its own to the ISS. And then the following year, in 2028, is when we'll get the HAB-1 module. Now, HAB-1 will provide the living space for the crew, the ability to conduct research, and perform manufacturing operations. And once this module docks to the PPTM, the 2 will be able to separate from the ISS and fly on their own as a 2-module free-flying station. This, of course, will then be supplemented with the subsequent modules that will follow it up, right? They'll add more. And I think it would be cool if Axiom could have this station up, running, and at least ready to do science at some capacity by the time we lose the ISS, even if it's not fully completed by that time. And so you know what they say, nothing lasts forever. And this is also true of the ISS. But what I'm hoping is that it is not true for our presence in space through having access to a space station. At least for the foreseeable future, anyway. And while we will soon be faced with decommissioning the ISS, be it in 2028 or if it makes it to 2030, I am excited to see plans already in place for newer stations to have the chance of taking its place. And I am also curious to see what sort of new things we can pull off with updated technology and hardware. For the time being, though, we still have a handful of years left where the ISS can serve us. And whether or not I see this in my lifetime, I am also curious to see the prospect of commercial spaceflight grow. I would like to think that maybe we could get more individuals on board with science and astronomy and studying space if we can actually get them up there and able to see what it is that we're so excited about and show them just how much we can gain. And so with this, I hope you have learned something, and let us all step outside tonight and look towards the stars.